working on yet another project. Judge Harrison, her term is up at the end of this year. She can't run again. She has more energy than my 5-year-old, my 8-year-old put together, and she really is a champion of this project in Saginaw County. I was fortunate enough to come in 2012 as a family court administrator and really saw the great work that Saginaw County was doing, and kind of came right in the midst of the data collection phase. And now we're in the implementation phase, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But want to recognize all of you, certainly for bringing this issue that we've all known about really to the forefront. Juvenile justice and child welfare has kind of been the forgotten part of the courts and of the system. Frankly, you know, we all get concerned about adults and what's going to happen when they get out of prison, but we realize that maybe if we stepped in at the age of 5, we wouldn't have these problems. So, on that note, where do we go in Saginaw? What do we find out? So, this is a process that we took. This is also the same process that the state has helped develop. So, orientation, you put together your DMC steering committee, which in our county was made up of pretty much everybody. What I found in Saginaw County is that we have a lot of organizations, but a lot of silos. No one was really working together. So, put together law enforcement, schools, faith-based community, all the courts, pretty much everybody. At the tail end, we really started getting the families and the youth involved, and that's when stuff got really neat and really interesting. We did our identification. We did our data. We were fortunate enough to also collect data on the juvenile justice portion because it was our own system. And unfortunately, those numbers are substantially higher than the numbers that we're going to look at for child welfare. But as the state kind of gets their data systems together, that's going to be something that is coming around the bend that we can really look at that as well. So through the data collection, we did key informant interviews, we did focus groups, we did surveys, we asked people what is working, what's not working. And that led us into the assessment and diagnosis phase. We sat down as a steering committee and we said, all right, well, what's important? What are we looking at? What's going to be things that we want to focus on? And then we began the intervention. So what we did, we'll go to the numbers first. So we talked about the state numbers. Saginaw's are higher. Saginaw, we have the inglorious situation, I guess, of being one of the top 5 most violent cities in the U.S. For the past decade. We have a government that wasn't ready for where we're at now. We had programs and policies that were not related to our audience. We just were not ready. We weren't, and it hit us hard. So, minority youth, 1.4, that's higher than the state average. African American youth, 1.8 for investigations, more prone to have reportings done or allegations filed on families and children. And then we looked at removals, 1.5 for minorities and 1.6 for African Americans. That is horrendous, horrendous. So with that data, just as Justice Kelly indicated, we had the data. So it was a shock. I think we all kind of knew it, but we didn't really know at what level we were at. Very concerning. So we sat down as a DMC steering committee, and we said, all right, what are we going to focus on? What are the things that we can make an impact on right now? I mean, we're going to work on every decision point, don't get us wrong, but we wanted something that's going to be able to really make an impact immediately. So we looked at several things. Really what we did, in the juvenile justice side of things, we identified 9 decision points: arrest, referral to court, diversion, detention, delinquency adjudication. But as far as the child welfare, we looked at those categories that Jane kind of outlined, those steps along the way. Where can we intervene at these steps to really stop this cycle? And we looked at assignments and then removals from home. So we looked at, all right, why are there a disproportionate number of assignments for minority youth? Why are these folks being referred more so than others? And we sat down as a committee, and we sat down with all of our stakeholders, and we said, well, what do we think? Where do we think that we can intervene? So we made some decisions. So we looked at one thing, training. So this is in your handout as well, I believe. So We looked at accurate identification of potential abuse and neglect for professionals who are mandated to report. That's a lot, but we talked about those mandated reporters, and potentially that increase in mandated reporters is what's leading to this increase. So what we found out in kind of interviewing mandated reporters is that there wasn't a whole lot of education. DHS does a great job with trying to educate those folks, but really, you talk about nurses, clergy, there's a mandated reporter around every corner, and they see something going on. Susie comes to school without a coat on. Oh, she's getting abused or neglected. Never mind, mom absolutely loves Susie, she can't afford the coat. But they're getting reported anyway. So those are getting referred for assignment. Some of those are getting vetted out, more so now than they were in the past, but we still have those few that are slipping through the cracks, as Justice Kelly mentioned in that sad story. We talked about effective police interactions with youth. I was telling my table mate here that when we began talking to the folks in our steering committee, we had a police chief there, and I won't name him or where he's from. And we were talking about, a lot of minority kids don't like the police, or they're skeptical of the police more so. There's just not a great interaction. He goes, I had no idea. I didn't know that occurred. How do you not know it doesn't occur? Everyone knows that occurs. But that, for the truth, they really just didn't think there was a disconnect. So, we focused on, well, let's try and get a more positive impact and role of the police rather than just at the end. So then we looked at cultural competency. This is the big one. So what we did is we wrote for a grant through DHS, through the Bureau of Juvenile Justice, got $100,000 to implement a cultural competency program to educate folks on, how they're going to interact with people on all sides of the fence. So we had representatives from the schools, from law enforcement, from DHS, from CMH, from the youth, from the faith-based community, had them come in, and we trained 20 of those folks. And they're our super trainers. So what is going to happen, and we're in the process of that right now, is we're rolling that out to everyone in our organization within the county. It's a really neat program. It's the California Brief Multicultural Competency Scale Training Program. Say that 10 times fast. And really what it is it's an intensive 4-day program. And I went through it, and I went through the training program, and it's fantastic. And it really just changes your mindset. It really gets you thinking, and it's something that's going to be a huge benefit to our community. Hopefully it will stop those assignments. It will be able to allow people to relate better to folks. It really is something that's neat. Programming, implementing a parent support partner program. DHS has a great program, Pathways to Potential, which gets in there in the elementary schools, identifying problems early on, doing interventions before they come to the court. Expand our Strengthening Families program. That's a national program. It's a fantastic program. Kind of deals with all the aspects of issues that we see. Increasing diversion programming. We began doing a family dependency court. What that is it's a drug court for families. A referral comes in for a family because mom or dad has a substance abuse problem. Instead of throwing them in the system and taking the kid out, we say, all right, let's get the team together. Let's try and fix the problem before we take the child out. It's a diversionary program. Also doing some prosecutorial diversion on things as well is really a neat system. And ultimately, we're doing a systems change. We have to change the way we're doing business. What we've been doing in the past has not worked. It just doesn't work. We're not being effective. And families are being ruined, and children's lives are being ruined because we're not doing what we need to do as guardians of these families. So expanding implementation of team decision-making, that's the kind of problem-solving court concept that's very popular. You can tell I'm a court administrator. But really getting the voice of the family, getting the voice of every stakeholder that's going to be involved with this family along the way to provide interventions and actively solve problems. And then lastly, establish use of objective risk and needs assessment, another grant that we wrote. We determined that families that were just coming in, we were throwing them into a program. We weren't validating any kind of, or doing any kind of risk or needs. Wrote a grant through NCJA and Bureau of Justice Assistance to implement a validated risk and needs assessment. So we're going to create a sort of one-stop shop. Susie doesn't have the coat, you can bring Susie here, we'll get them the service. Police officers who refer kids into the system typically do so because they want services. They don't want the kid to have a record. Just bring the kid to the assessment center and we'll put them in the system. But that starts with a validated risk and needs assessment tool, and that's what we have. Something that, a side note, can be replicated throughout the state through the Office of Community Corrections. But those are a few of the things that we're doing in Saginaw. We're still in our infancy, but we're really getting some neat programs going. We're very excited about the statewide initiative. And happy, and Judge Harrison, I know, is tickled pink that she can kind of blaze a trail for this, and we certainly appreciate all the help. Thank you.